Coming up, is good used farm equipment still available? Auctions, have they all moved online? Also, old grain trucks known to Dave and I, and my Rural Reflections online column. We'll get started with a little chit-chat, though, here in just a few minutes. This is the Rural Reflections Podcast. Welcome to the Rural Reflections Podcast. Dave Nelson's in Carrington, North Dakota. I'm Grant Nelson here at the studios of Thief River Falls Radio. And good morning, Dave Nelson. How are you doing?
Morning, Grant. Oh, I'm doing pretty good, I guess. Nice morning.
Yeah, I heard your cat in the background when I initially called you. She's walking around, stretching out, getting ready for the day, it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm really not sure what she wants, and she probably doesn't know either. But she's been fed and watered, and I don't know. She slept on my leg all night long, so I think she's well taken care of. I don't know what she's after today.
We must be leading kind of parallel lives, because when I fall asleep on the big chair downstairs, I'll wake up and Clyde will be sleeping on his back, literally on his back, with his stomach facing upwards, in between my legs, just sacked out. I mean, I can hardly wake him up sometimes. He's unreal. But we had, talking about cats, we had a couple of new visitors. Well, I guess they've just been there for a while, but we found them. That little stray female cat running around, and found two of her little kittens in the wall in the barn. So now we're kind of faced with, do we intervene? Or do we just put some straw out there and some pillows and some food and see what happens? Because, right now we're feeding her food up at the house, and then she goes back and takes care of her kittens. Ideally, I'd like her to come up to the house and bring her kittens, because there we can take care of them all real easy up on the porch. But I don't know if that's exactly going to happen. So we've let's see here. We've added 60% more cats in the last day to our place.
Yeah, it's fall. I suppose they'll start popping in where they find a little bit of humanity or a warm place or something.
I imagine so. We were cleaning out the barn yesterday, got that pretty much done. And, that's an old dairy barn. So the center section is low and curved, and it's impossible to clean just about. But, I mean, you do it, but it's very hard. And they brought in Class 5, so we leveled off the whole thing, and now we're going to put straw on top of that. And I think we'll have it pretty well set then. That's one of the big things we're getting ready for fall, was to get the barn cleaned out. And then that big old chuckler building that we have, the machine shed, starting tomorrow, that will no longer be 1970s green. We're going to paint that one barn red.
That should look nice along with the rest of the red buildings.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. And then we got a plan for a big steel sign, like Mary. And for those of you who don't know, Mary is Dave's wife. She makes those barn quilts. And that kind of got me inspired, because, of course, we put our barn quilt that we got from her on the outside of the one garage, and we got a light over it. And I thought, well, we should have something similar to that above the door of the big green shed. And Lisa suggested we get a steel sign. And there is a fellow who does it. Matter of fact, we've hired him from the Soil and Water Conservation District to make awards for people who we give out prizes to. And he does a really good job. So our idea, and don't tell anybody else, is an American flag in the shape of a barn.
Oh, that'll be cool.
Kind of hoping that would be kind of a neat little thing.
You better hope nobody listens to the radio now.
Yeah. Hope nobody else steals the idea. If everybody had flags shaped like a barn all over the place, I'd feel kind of good about that. I mean, that would be, and it won't even be a flag, because you're not really supposed to reshape the flag. It'll just be in colors of the flag. So It'll look kind of neat.
It'll look cool.
Yeah. How's farming going out in Carrington, North Dakota, in that general area, Dave?
Well, we're to the point of harvesting edible beans, and that's going to, I think, be the first part of it anyway here this coming week. And then soybeans are dried down a lot. I mean, we had 2 nights of frost, and there wasn't much moisture left in anything anyway because it's so dry. So they really turn brown just like that. But it's that kind of a difficult thing that happens with beans when they freeze before they're completely ripe. The leaves stay on them, and so I don't know if it'll let the leaves go or not, but usually that makes harvesting a little more difficult. But anyway, they're inching up on the soybean harvest here, so I would say if things go well, we'll be done harvesting in October this year, unlike April of next year.
Boy, wouldn't that be a treat to have it done instead of like last year where it never ended? It just kept going the whole winter long. I mean, we've got beans drying down around this area and people are getting ready, but I think our grain is pretty much all done, and we've had a lot of pre-pile going on for sugar beets. But I was wondering, when you had that frost, we had the 2 nights of frost too. I wouldn't really call it a killing frost, though. It never got more than about 32 for maybe an hour and a half or maybe 3 hours, somewhere in there. What did you have out there in Carrington?
Oh, we had a couple hours of 26 to 28 degrees the second night. The first night it got down to 28 for about an hour. So it's plenty of frost to get an open field. Yep. Frozen pretty good. Corn is all white here. Okay. But we are real short of moisture, so that's part of it. I'm sure it froze and it was already about half dried down, So
New Rockford is about probably, 14 miles north of you?
Mm-hmm.
I saw a story on a fellow up there who had 60-inch corn rows, and then he put soybeans in between. He's going to harvest the corn and then let the cattle come in. Or not, did he have? Yeah, I think he had soybeans in between it. Yeah, and then let the cattle come in, eat the soybeans, and eat the corn this fall. I tell you what, you guys are innovators out there. I don't know what it can be owed to, but they sure try things.
Yeah, that I know. I wonder if I don't know who that is, but I'm not sure.
We used to do that around when I no-tilled and I had grass-fed beef cattle. We'd no-till corn, like take the drill and make one section corn, one section soybean, one section corn, one section soybeans. That worked out nice because the soybeans fix nitrogen and corn likes nitrogen, and the cattle could go in there and it was easy to fence. And honestly, it was just it was fun for the fall, so I think that's part of the reason.
Sure.
Well, I'll tell you what, next section of Rural Reflections podcast, we're going to talk about the equipment that you find in the tree row. We'll take a break, do my online column, and be right back. I'm Grant Nelson. This is Rural Reflections. It's that time of the year when hunters show themselves, then walk into the woods. It's a time that makes me a little nostalgic for a time when everybody was a hunter. Not because I even hunt, but because the fall always brought my family together for deer hunting. Milking cows maintained a priority through the deer hunting season when I was young, but just barely. Hunting was a close second. Now, I don't need to go into the woods to see that it's hunting season. It's as close as any convenience store. Hunters are an innovative bunch, and portable goose blinds are a popular method of hunting, if my convenience store survey is accurate. I've seen several trailers laden with material meant to blend into an area that waterfowl would frequent. While I haven't climbed into one of these mobile structures, it's obvious that you do climb inside so as to blend into the grass, reeds, or cattails that make up a swamp or field of CRP. Although most of these structures spend their productive time in the field, they typically pass through the convenience store as their owners get gas, coffee, food. I think many deer hunters have a need to farm. Food plots are a big part of deer hunting, which is an excellent opportunity for the average person to own a tractor, a disc, a harrow, and maybe even a seed drill. I enjoy seeing the various trailers that showcase the plot seeding method employed by each individual as they pass from city to woods. Many of the combination feature a new tractor, fresh from the showroom floor, coupled with some pre-World War II tillage, fresh from a tree row. I enjoy the contrast between the two pieces of equipment, but the combination makes sense. Smaller used tractors, such as those used in planting a deer plot, are priced at a premium, so buying new doesn't cost that much more. It's a lot easier. The use of older tillage makes sense too, as the cost of new tillage equipment will light your hair on fire. I mean, the purpose is to simply incorporate seed into that first layer of soil. it shouldn't cost so much money. I enjoy the homemade plot seeders too. These vary from old pony drills, simple spin spreaders, and even large row crop planters that have been made into several smaller planters. Some of the planters made from larger models are sophisticated and may use no-tillage coulters, precision planter units, and even some that come equipped with liquid fertilizer applicators. It's all in the name of creating wildlife habitat, but I think the truth is that all that equipment is just a little larger version of the toys we all played with in the sandbox. The camouflage that makes hunters blend into the woods, it serves more as a signal that the seasons are exchanging themselves. It's a good time to see the woods, enjoy the quiet, and appreciate nature. Here's to a safe hunt and a long, temperate fall. I'm Grant Nelson. This is Rural Reflections. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the online column today. Dave, as our feature for the second part of the show, let's talk about old farm trucks. Now, we certainly have a lot of time in driving old farm trucks. I was thinking about one that I really enjoyed myself was a Chevy 6500 that I had probably in 1950s or so. Bought it for $600, and I bet I hauled $3,000 worth of Class 5 fill with it back somewhere in the 1990s. And I finally made it into a trailer that I could pull behind a pickup, and most of the time just pulled it behind a tractor. And I think when I sold it for $400. I sold the trailer for $400. So I really got my use out of that old bugger. Once you got it started, you were pretty good, but it was always a little bit of a challenge to get it going. But I know there's a lot of other old trucks in, our common history.
Yeah, a lot of the old trucks have a kind of a common theme. The brakes never work on them, and they all have their little quirks that it takes to get them going and keep them going and so on. But yeah, we used to have, I think the first real truck we had on the farm was a 1937 Chevy one-ton truck. And that's the one that Debbie and I used to drive out in the field, and we could only go in super low, and I couldn't reach the pedals, so I steered it on my knees, and Debbie ran the gas pedal, and then when we got near the combine, I just turned the key and shut it off so Dad could go out and unload.
Man, I can just picture that when you're talking about it. I mean, I can't actually picture the type of truck it was, but I can picture you pulling up next to, and that must have been that old International combine. Is that the one that?
No, it was an old case, A6 case combine.
It was the one that used to sit out in the woods then.
Yes, the one that I wrecked.
When I was working on the farm, of course, I think we had an F600 Ford truck. It was a black one with a white box, actually pretty nice looking, and I believe that had a 289 or 283 Ford engine in there. And
yeah, those were, I can't remember what those were. Those were, I think that was a 292.
Okay,
I think is what it was. They had the ones that had the exhaust pipes on top of the motor.
Yep.
When you open the hood,
and that
was a good truck.
That was a good truck. That 280 or that 292, is that like an industrial version of the 289 then?
No, it was a different style of motor entirely. There was a 292 and a 292, 312, 352 or something version of that motor. I'm sure it had a lot of common things, but it was an older version of the wider wedge engine. The 289 was a real narrow engine. It was called a narrow wedge, where these were kind of a wider version.
Now, you were telling me a little bit before that there was a one-ton truck that Dad had bought without a box, and later equipped it for hauling grain, that sort of thing. But he had used it originally for fencing. Yeah,
I think that was an old Ford truck too, and I'm guessing it was maybe 48 or 9 or something like that. It was one of those that the speedometer was marked where you could shift it at, because it was a non-synchronized transmission, and you couldn't shift it unless you shifted it at those speeds, And it was a very nice. It was in good shape. The truck was in real good shape, but didn't have a box on it. And while Dad was looking for a box for it, he tied some pails and red posts laying across the frame of it, and a bunch of fencing supplies, and used it for fencing. And then eventually got a box for it, but I don't think it ever had a hoist on it. And so that one kind of went down the road, and I think that was replaced by that black and white 56 Ford, I think it was, or whatever that was.
Yeah, I remember that one. And then I remember going to the Viking elevator with trucks that didn't have a hoist on them, and there was a hoist in the floor of the elevator, so you'd park your pickup or your truck with the front axle on top of the hoist, and then they'd lift it up into the air and just dump all that grain right out the back.
I know. That was pretty crazy. That was great at the elevator. It just didn't work with the darn at home.
Yeah, trying to put handyman jacks or something on the front and lift it up. Forget it, that didn't work. We just ended up using a lot of shoveling back then, as I recall.
A lot of shoveling, yeah.
You know, and then I remember going on when I started working for Sugar Beet people. I remember the first time I ever drove a truck that didn't have tape on the seat. I thought, oh my word, these people must be rich.
Yeah, it was different. You know, when the truck was just your grain truck and you used it for maybe a month, a year, and there wasn't all that much grain storage on the farm at the time, they sure didn't get the best of treatment. You know, they probably opened the doors and scared the mice out of the inside of them every now and then, but otherwise they were kind of an afterthought. But boy, the grain truck nowadays is vital on the farm.
Yeah, a lot of people have gone to semis so that they can constantly swap out trailers, and it is essential because you got to control how much commodities you have on the farm. Between bidding and having storage and having transport for all that stuff, that's a big part of farming.
Well, yes, and it used to be, you know, there was about 3 people that hauled grain, and of course everybody went to Duluth. And so your markets were somewhat improved then by having that available. But as time went on, I mean, we have a lot of guys that haul their particular grains 100 miles or more just to get it marketed, because they're hauling to an ethanol plant, or they're hauling, you know, kind of a specialty crop that has to go to a bush plant, or, you know, something like that. So, yeah, that truck has become very important. And if you watch somebody combining corn, you'll notice that one combine sometimes needs 2 grain carts and about 3 semis to keep the crop going away from it in the field, you know.
Absolutely. When I see an army of semis sitting in the field with trailers behind them, like, okay, there's corn going on somewhere nearby, because they go through a lot of bushels, that's for sure. Dave, you got anything else for us this week?
No, I guess not.
All right. Well, I hope you have a very enjoyable rest of your Labor Day weekend. Are you working Monday?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. I am too. Well, we can commiserate together that way, and we'll talk to you next week, okay?
All right. See you, Grant.
See you later. There he is, my brother Dave, on our Rural Reflections podcast. Dave's in Carrington, North Dakota. I'm here at the studios of Thief River Falls Radio.